Welcome to the Invaluable podcast, where we talk all things content creation. I'm Eric Didier.
And I'm Justin Jackson.
And whether you are creating content on your phone or developing big budget films on a cinema camera, we aim to provide you with practical knowledge to help you the next time you hit the record button. I admit I had to read that from our notes, but nonetheless, we are here today. And through our intro episode, we wanted to dive into what we thought was important for this podcast as we go into the lifetime of it. And because Invaluable Productions is the two of us, and because honestly, we wouldn't be the first to admit it, but we've been told and kind of agree to ourselves that we have interesting backstories, both of us individually, as to how we became filmmakers. We both have very different paths, and we both have different angles of filmmaking. So we thought it was important for us to really just have an episode where I kind of asked Justin a lot of questions, and as you'll hear on the next episode, Justin will ask me a bunch of questions, really just diving into our background, why we got into filmmaking, how we got into filmmaking, and I think there's just a lot of interesting takeaways because part of the the pillar of structure for this podcast is letting everybody feel like they can be a professional content creator, filmmaker, whatever angle they want to take that. And I think that we're two very great examples of people that took nothing and turned it into a lot of something. So you, Justin, are a professional athlete by nature. Tell me where your baseball journey began.
Yeah, so my baseball journey began on the backfields of South Asheville Little League in North Carolina. And from the first memories that I ever had were baseball memories. My father played professionally for 13 years, played in the major leagues with the Astros, the Giants, and the Rangers. So I just was a baseball brat, I guess. I don't know what they call it. And just grew up around the game. So that was initially what I wanted to do. Always play baseball. And I was just lucky enough to have a career where I spent 10 years in the minor leagues playing baseball, playing a game that I love, that I still love, and being paid to do it. And that was the first time I ever was, paid for my passion. And luckily, filmmaking, that journey kind of became, later on. And I've just been blessed to have, two instances where my passion's been able to be a livelihood and be able to take care of my family with, and just truly blessed. But yeah, back on the ball fields in 1995, 96, South Asheville Little League, baby.
Yeah, I was barely on my own 2 feet at that time. No, I think it's super valuable because something that you said there that I really think is important is that you throughout your life and careers you've been paid for your passion, and I think do what you're passionate about, get paid for your passion. We both fell into that, but I don't think we kind of pushed ourselves into it. What has been your most important experience with baseball?
Most important experience? Well, I'll give you like an overall, like an overview. I'd say the most important experience has been just meeting the amount of amazing, talented players and teammates that I've had, because it really opened up the world to me and allowed me to see the world much differently than just my little, North Carolina small town vision. And just being around my teammates, man, it just, I remember my first day of spring training, or actually after I signed, and I'm hanging out with guys from California, from Florida, from the Dominican Republic. I mean, we had a kid from Taiwan. Like, just meeting people from all over the world immediately was just eye-opening. My most important experience, though, that I ever had was playing for Team USA, without a doubt. I got to play for the junior national team when I was 18, and we played in Cuba. I met Fidel Castro's son. We smuggled cigars back. All kinds of amazing things. We took second place. We lost to Korea. And, they kicked our butt in the finals. But that's all part of it.
It's bound to happen. I think, the most interesting part of your career is the intersection between filmmaking and baseball. And I think, part of, interestingly, the timing that's so beautiful about this podcast is we are both, maybe you a little bit more than I at this point, are trying to show our identities to the world. And I think you are at a point in your personal life where you want to talk about the intersection between baseball and filmmaking. So how did those two worlds intersect?
Yeah, I touched on it briefly in our opening episode, but filmmaking and baseball. So baseball was completely my life for 26 years. I didn't know anything else. I didn't want to do anything else. I didn't care about anything else. It was baseball, baseball, baseball. And, every athlete has a shelf life and knows when it's about to be done, And I started getting that sense just from, I went through a couple of traumatic things. We were in a bus accident when I was playing with the Braves. It was very scary. Started getting to a point in my life where I was like, I don't know if baseball is what I want to do. I lost a best friend around that time, and just things got very dark and different for me for the first time. And then I, at the same time, realized, my dreams of the major league are coming to an end. And it was the most anxious and afraid I've ever been in my life at that moment. I'm talking everything, waking up nauseous, puking, to just being just a complete wreck and not knowing what's going to happen next. And I'll never forget, I called my dad. I didn't have any offers to sign back to a team. So the Braves, they were kind of like, we don't have room for him to come back. I didn't have a team at all. So I called my dad and I was like, man, I think this is it. I'm done. This is in 2016 in the spring. I was like, I'm done. And he told me, he said, look, Justin, I think it's important, whether this is it or not, that you really look at and say, hey, give it one more time, one more chance, and go play. And if that's it, then at least you got to experience the end of everything. You know what I mean? And if not, you keep going. And I was kind of like, I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I was literally didn't want to ride a bus anymore. I was so anxious on a bus, heaven forbid fly or anything like that. And it was just I was really didn't want to do it. But in the midst of that, I started thinking, what am I going to do next? So the first inclination I had was coaching is going to be next. And I knew I could talk. I knew a lot about the game. So I grabbed a cell phone, made a YouTube channel, Justin Jackson Baseball, made my first video. Video did pretty good. People paid attention to, my baseball career. So I got some traction on video 1 and video 2. Then I reached out to my uncle, Uncle Todd. And Uncle Todd, he was a photographer and has been a photographer for my whole life that I can remember. He's had a camera. He had old Leica cameras back in the day. And just that's all. I always knew Uncle was like the tech guru, So my first experiences messing around with Mac and all that was with him. And I reached out to him and I was like, can you film a video for me? Doing I think it was my third video, how to throw a long toss. So he came out to my high school, filmed the video. It went awesome. He edited it for me. I sent it back to me. I uploaded it. It's got a couple thousand views these days. And I hit him up again. I was like, hey, I want to do a couple more videos on Saturday. Would you, want to come out there? And he was like, look, Just. That's what he calls me, Just. He was like, I can't. It takes too much time for me to film and edit and do all of this. I think you need to kind of decide if this is something you want to do, start learning it a little bit. And I was at first a little offended. I was like, man, he can't do this for me. But he knows me well enough to know that I'm a person that needs to just kind of get that kick in the butt and I'm going to go do. And I did that. Went and bought a camera, started filming, and, some time went by and I'm just like, man, this is something I really like. So then I fast forward 2 or 3 months and I ended up taking my dad's advice, going and playing again. So I went to an independent team in Lancaster Barnstormers in Pennsylvania, and I vlogged the season. So I kind of went away from the how-to videos. I did a few of them, coaching videos, but I vlogged the season and I let people into my life at a time where I was very vulnerable. Mentally, I was going through a lot. But what happened is, instead of me hiding in my shell and staying in my room or staying away from people or trying to find like safe space, the camera forced me to get out and show my world. So I was going out, filming, going to events, doing things in my downtime, being more interactive with my teammates and all those great things because of my camera. And it became to be, it was like, if Justin's around, he's got the camera. So everybody kind of knew. And it was a great thing. So I vlogged the season. It went amazing. And I was just hooked by the end of that. Just absolutely hooked. And when the season wrapped up, like I knew what I was going to go do immediately after that. And got kind of lucky with a couple job opportunities. And I was willing to put baseball down so I could start being a filmmaker. Not full-time, but, sometimes at that point. And that was kind of how the baseball ran into the filmmaking at the very beginning.
And at what point did it click? Hey, this might be a little something.
The thing that's the one thing I remember the first time is me and I had a teammate named Pete Andrelzik. He had a camera that you could go manual with and change ISO and all that. And I was like, dude, I don't even know how to use that because I had a GoPro or whatever. But one of his buddies on another team got engaged and they were playing us in Lancaster. And he was like, hey, man, could you take some pictures for us, for me and my fiance? So we were like, yeah, let's go. And he invited me and I just kind of took over and just started taking the pictures and going crazy with it. He took some pictures and, I brought it back to my iPad in the locker room. We edited them and had them back to him by the end of the game the next night. And the next day he came to the field and he gave us both $75. And I was like, time out. I was like, we just got money taking photos? That's a thing? And I left there and I was like, oh man, like I literally was like, that's crazy that I can make money. And then I got done playing. I filmed my brother and sister-in-law, Brooke and Trevor Tyson's wedding for free, completely for free. And I got a job from them where I actually did a wedding video and made like wedding video pricing money. And I was like, oh shit, yes, it's gonna happen eventually. It's just a matter of time now. And I just, from then on, just like went, honestly, just as locked in as I was with baseball, with learning filmmaking from that moment on, because I knew that it was an opportunity for me.
And what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've taken from professional athlete to filmmaker?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the biggest lesson that I could say from being a professional athlete to going into filmmaking for me would just be, working as a team and learning how your teammates tick and how you are and, making the best team out of that. I was for a lot of time a shortstop and they call that the captain on the field. And, I just really feel the importance of, finding the right team members. And I think me and you've been completely blessed to like cross paths because I think we really mesh well, especially on set and where we're trying to go with directions, and also finding the collaborators in the community that can come in with expertises and know that and not being afraid to bring people around and on set, So I really feel like, the teamwork aspect of being an athlete has helped me tremendously, whether it's client relations or, other filmmakers and things like that. Just how to talk to people, not afraid to talk to anybody. I do have a quick story. I was very afraid when I met Derek Jeter when I was 18. I couldn't talk.
Who wouldn't be?
Yeah, I was like a little I was a little kid. I was 18, and it was like seeing God.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I could not talk. But other than that, I can talk to anybody.
Tell me about that story.
Yeah, so when I was 18, the Chicago White Sox flew me to Chicago to do a private workout like 2 weeks before the draft. I get there, it was sick. So I was there 2 days. Day one, they brought me to the field to take batting practice and infield with the White Sox, with the main team, which was super cool. But honestly, the only thing I cared about the whole trip was the Yankees were in town. So I knew I had a chance to see Derek Jeter in person for the first time. And man, I got to see that, man. It was awesome. So I took batting practice, took infield with Juan Uribe, throwing balls across the diamond. They're like, oh, dang, look at this little kid. You know, I was doing my thing or whatnot.
You made Juan sweat his pants. He's like, oh, man, he might be taking my job.
Nah, he wasn't worried about me. But, yeah, so Harold Baines, who's a great player, was a bench coach for the White Sox. And I was like, hey, man, any way we can meet Jeter? He's like, I'll see what I can do. So, mind you, he talked to Jeter before practice and stuff. So he mentioned to Jeter. So the whole time the Yankees are stretching, I'm doing infield. I look over and Jeter's like stretching and he's kind of looking out at us, but I didn't say anything. Like, I don't know if he knew or anything. So then after batting practice, about an hour before the game, you know, the away team comes to the cage, gets some swings before. And Harold came up to me, and there was another young prospect there with me. And he goes, hey, Jeter said, come over and say hello. So now, like, the most nervous you've ever been in your life, I was like, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move anything. And I'm like, oh, this is my shot. And I'll never forget, we go to the batting cage. It's right in the White Sox dugout right behind it. So you go down the stairs, and then the cage is there. And they had a door to the batting cage. The door was closed because the Yankees were in there. So I look in, I see Matsui hitting, and I see Johnny Damon hitting. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But Jeter was just standing over there, and I was like, like it's him. And yeah, so I was like tripping out, and I'm with that prospect guy, and we're both standing there, and I'm like, I can't open the door. And he's like, I no chance I can do it. And I took a deep breath, and I was like, this is my only shot to meet Derek Jeter, maybe. Like, who knows? Open the door, walk in. I go, just like a little kid, Mr. Jeter, Mr. Baines said, come over and say hello to you. He was like, hey. And he was just like super cool and just broke the ice. Asked me where I was from. I was like, I'm from Asheville, North Carolina. He's like, oh, I played there when I was in the minors. So we just had like a quick moment, and it was just like, just the coolest thing ever, man. He was awesome. He was just how you would imagine him in real life.
And a personal story that I love to hear, so I'm going to make you say it here. You met Manny Ramirez as well?
Oh, yeah, I met Manny. Manny was dope.
Yeah, I just love his personality. So
yeah, Manny, so I met him. I was playing in a Major League Spring Training game, and I was a minor leaguer, so time was running out. So they said, hey, Justin, you and the other minor leaguers, y'all going to just hit in the cage, not on the field. So I was like, oh, dang, that sucks. So we run in to the cage, and I walk in there, and guess who's getting extra work? Manny Ramirez. So he's in the cage right next to me, and I'm over here like taking my swings and trying not to stare at him and be weird, right? And he comes out of the cage, he's standing next to me, he goes, "Que lo que, papi?" And I was like, "What's up, bro?" He goes, "Oh, you black?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm black, dude." He was like, "I didn't know, man. What's going on, bro?" And he like dapped me up and just was very nice and just chatted with us for a little bit. And this was like, this is when he was with the Tampa Rays. So he was like, I think it might have been his last season. Mm-hmm. Man, he was just super cool. And you just like look back and you're like, these guys that were like our heroes are just normal dudes, right? And just really good at swinging a bat.
Really good at swinging a bat. So what part of filmmaking, the process, pre-post, whatever, gets you the most excited?
What part of the process? So my favorite part, without a shadow of a doubt, is production day. It's game day. It's that same rush and energy when you wake up and you got to get your gear right and make sure everything's in line. It's just like me, going to the field, putting my jersey on or taking my pregame swings or my routine or whatnot. And then once the production starts, like it's that laser focus, the same thing that I, got to feel playing in sports. And yeah, I love production day. It's just literally my favorite. And I just get so excited once, you put all the work in and you execute, and then you can, look at the dailies or look at like some of the footage and you're like, man, that was sweet. You get that feeling of completing something, even though, post-production is about to start. But I really love production day. And then my second favorite is color grading. Like, it's the creativity that comes with color grading and just like really putting that sparkle finish on an image. That's my favorite thing within the editing spectrum, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's super valuable to the team. Tell me about the relationship, because while you're kind of giving that answer, I'm thinking in my head, there is a lot that is to be said about filmmaking is pre-production, production, post-production.
Right.
But as an athlete, you're in the cage, that's your pre-production. You're on game day, that's your production. Then you go back and in both cases, you can say we look at the film, that could be your post-production, right? How does that relate to you? Do you notice those things? Is that something that maybe just came a little naturally?
It's the preparation aspect of it. It's very similar. Later on in my career, I learned that what I did, I had to become a creature of habit with my training. And this happened a lot later than it probably should have for me. But once I realized that, it made the game so much easier because I didn't have to think through anything physical. I could just go play, react, and play the game. Before that, when you have your routines all over the place, you get in the game, you're like, did I do this right? Did I, am I getting my foot down on time? My hands moving when it's supposed to? And you're all messed up. But when you're really focused on that pre-production or, right. I get my stuff grooved, I do the same routine off the tee, same flips every day, or for a pitcher, I'm throwing holding my same grips, and I'm throwing my, my routine, throwing my bullpens. Then all of a sudden, the game is just, you just go execute. And that's how it is with filmmaking. I think when I started, I didn't know what a routine looked like. So I was just showing up, shooting, and just hitting record and just see what happens, right? And, then there was always that, man, I wonder, what if I would have done this? Or what if I would have done that? Or, man, that angle would have been sweet. Or if I would have asked this question. And nowadays, I think we pride ourselves on, like, being very strategic and just getting all of that pre-production stuff done so we can try to think about every scenario that we can so that when we get to production, we know we've got what we need to get a very good story. And then that allows us to be free and open up and be creative and spontaneous on set because we've already got all this stuff in the can that we need. Now we can, they said something about this. Let's dive a little deeper and ask that question. Or, man, I would have never guessed that they would have done this. How about you try jumping on this and we're going to film you? Once you have everything you need to tell the story you need for your client, then you can get creative. But if you don't have an idea where you need to go, it's just going to be, throwing things in the air and seeing what happens. And that's a scary place to be for me now, to be not prepared. So preparation is everything.
You talk so much about this, and I can see the passion and the love for filmmaking as you did for baseball. So you can even touch on the baseball side if you want, but how do you keep the lust and how do you keep the love so that it doesn't feel like it's a job every day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, they say your side hustles or your passions or things you do, in your free time, that's there. It's a love. A lot of people find, golf or they paint or different things like that just to like feel like themselves, right? And filmmaking was that for me. When I was touched on earlier in an anxious, scary place, like filmmaking was the only thing that made me feel normal and happy for that little bit, Between that and my now wife, we were dating at the time, without her and filmmaking, which she always encouraged me and pushed me towards doing. Thanks, Ash. Without that, like, I was in a very scary place. And, I think for us, now, being a filmmaker, I have to find different projects to do that are pushing the envelope to make me continue to not make it feel like work, right? Doing this podcast, this is like a new kind of in an uncomfortable space. I can't be comfortable. Uncomfort is the thing that drives me. It's scary, but trying different types of, projects or, doing something that creatively like makes me take it to the next level. That's what really makes me always make this filmmaking thing feel like a passion. And it doesn't feel like work ever when it's like that. When I'm in the monotony and you're cutting, editing, same thing over and over, that can be monotonous and kind of like, but I always try to make sure that we're pushing our company to do something that's a little more creative or a little harder than we thought or, just a new level. Because that's what, for me personally, scratches that itch of filmmaking and passion that I need. And then it never feels like work. Like sometimes I feel like people are like, what do you do for a job? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I have a company. Like I actually have a job. I do it like this is my job because it doesn't feel like work 90% of the time, and that's just a true blessing. But yeah, just always push the envelope, try to do better than you did last time. That's what kind of drives me to not. And when I feel like I'm not doing that, which happens every once in a while, I have to reevaluate, and then I try to let's do something else. Let's call some creators, or let's go shoot a music video. I've done projects for free that I just am passionate about because it does make me feel more in tune to that creative spirit.
I like that answer. And I gotta just be very transparent to the viewer, the listener. We have for both these episodes for us kind of pre-written questions that we want to make sure we touch on. So I apologize. Our transition game in these 2 episodes is not great because I'm cutting right into something else, but I think it's very important. Your very first videos were, ones with your cousin, ones with your uncle. You were doing lawn toss stuff. You kind of did some vlogs. You did some review videos. Play Crate being one of them.
Yeah.
And I still get that video in my feed to this day, even though I've seen it a million times. A lot of those views are probably from me.
Thanks, dude.
But I think it's important because when you were making those videos, the idea of being a filmmaker was in the back of your head, but you're not actively saying, I am going to be a filmmaker. Because at that point, you're still I'm a baseball player. So what I think is curious and what I want to dive into is what were those things that you were doing? What are those lessons that you think from those videos you're taking away today? Because I think whether or not you knew it then, you were doing things that you still do and apply today.
Dude, that's interesting because at that moment when I was doing Plate Crate videos, I did not consider myself a filmmaker, a content creator, nothing like that. I was strictly I'm this baseball player that is, Plate Crate was awesome. They would send me free boxes every month, and I thought it was just cool to get stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, if I just do this thing, they send me this, and I can get the word out and help them out. And it was just really cool, and I had never experienced anything like that at that point. And so I was just having fun making stuff for the first time, talking about stuff. Most of them were in our, me and my wife's first apartment together, and I was just out in the living room unboxing stuff, and I thought it was cool. I was obsessed with Casey Neistat at that time, and that was a thing. Unboxing on his blogs was what did he get today? So I felt like I was kind of cool for that. But yeah, I mean, I had no idea I was going to be doing this at that point. It was later on that I kind of got the vision and the bug, I would say. But then I was just having fun, just doing that. Still didn't know how to. I look at those videos, I'm like, dude, I don't even have a light on any of those. I didn't know what I was doing, man. It was very beginnings, and I love seeing that because it makes me just realize how far I've come.
I think that's a very good point. And from that, you like I said, that's whether you knew it or not, I think there were things that you were doing then that you still probably applied today, whether or not you realize it, but you were then given an opportunity through your pro contract to pursue an education. Tell me about that process.
Yeah, so it's funny because right after those Plate Crate videos, or during that time, I'll never forget this. So when I signed my contract out of high school, when I got drafted, there was a clause that after you finished affiliate ball, you have 2 years to start a college scholarship. If those 2 years run out, you don't get the scholarship money that was part of your contract. So I had signed to Arizona State University out of high school, and that was where I was going to play college. So I got to get basically an equivalent tuition to the school that I signed to. I was living here in Milwaukee and already working, and I didn't want to go anywhere to go to college. I didn't necessarily want to be a college student. I was 26 or 7. Yeah, 27. So I didn't want to go to campus. I wasn't really feeling any of that, but I didn't know what I was going to do. Literally had no idea what I was going to do. And I was sitting on the couch, and I got an Instagram ad from the Los Angeles Film School. And I was it was apply today, go to your online classes. And it was quick B-roll cuts. And I was like, wait, what? They have school for filmmaking? And at that point, I had done the vlog. I was doing unboxings. I was like, my YouTube channel was kind of popping, but I wasn't playing baseball again. So I was like, it was kind of going downhill. I worked for Corked Baseball, who, had the try not to suck shirts for the Cubs during their World Series run. So that was like going on. So I was in baseball a little bit, doing some video stuff there on, a little bit. And I had no idea of like school, right? And so I showed my wife and she was like, you should do it. Kind of was asking her, we were engaged at the time. I'm like, it kind of sounded like a bad idea. Like, you're going to go to film school? Really? That's what you're going to do? At that time, I was like, I guess. So then she was like, you should do it. And that really encouraged me. I was like, okay. So I called my agent. My agent was like, well, let me look and make sure it's on like there's like a list of schools that you can go to, right? Basically any university, even some of the online schools, there's only certain ones that are on there or whatnot. And he came back, he's like, got good news. It's on there. It's on the list of approved schools. And I was like, wow. Like, also I was coming up on, I played a year of independent ball. So that ran out of one full year. And I had like 6 months left or I was kind of done. So I had to do this. So I called them, made an appointment online or whatever, chatted with them. And yeah, they were able to kind of basically set up to where we would pay, my tuition would come out. I would send them kind of whatever the check was. They would cut the difference. I'd get a check from the Blue Jays to kind of reimburse for each one of my semesters or whatnot. And I went to school. And it was awesome because part of my tuition package was the tech package, which is one of the cameras that's actually filming today. A whole bunch of lighting, my first lighting equipment, sound equipment, boom poles, and all kinds of different things. So it was my first like gear for being a filmmaker. I mean, I had a GoPro before then. I think I bought a camera that I filmed with, but I like I was vlogging. I didn't have any other gear really. And then all of a sudden my home turned into like at that time I was like, man, I got video paradise in here. But yeah, it was my first embarking in there. And then I graduated during the pandemic. My daughter was born. She was probably like 4 or 5 months old, I think. Two or 3 months old, actually. And so I got a picture with my cap and gown on, graduate, bachelor's in digital filmmaking, cum laude. Yeah, it's crazy, man. Came a long way.
And do you see yourself pursuing that same path had you not been given, so let's say you let those 6 months run out. I know you're passionate enough that you would have still found yourself in this same space, but tell me about what you feel would have been different had you not taken advantage of that.
Well, my wife would have kicked my ass if I didn't go to school, so that would have been different for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I've always, like, I was moving towards what I'm doing today constantly. Even from that point, I was moving towards it. It just gave me a classical training in what I'm doing. So when it comes to the preparation thing, I don't know if I learned that without school. And I don't think I probably get to it, but not as fast. And I just remember even when I came into the Misfits, and my big thing was like the pre-production. We got to figure out planning so that we can be efficient. And that was like the thing that I felt like I could bring to the table because I learned that with school and had all the documents on how to plan it, build storyboards, shot lists. I was proficient in what the shot types were, and I've gotten much better at why you use different shot types as I move forward. But school really gave me a great base that I could move forward with, and also just open your eye to the business side of it, because there was some budgeting classes and things that kind of helped. I think when we kind of pitch our proposals, that really helped. And man, it was. And lastly, the confidence when you have a degree and you walk into a room. I know it's kind of cliche, but you just are confident in yourself and what you're doing. And I didn't have that before. I was just it was this fun gig that I did. I was just hoping I would do good. I always was second guessing, like, is this good? So you could ask anybody. I'd be like, hey, can you watch this video before I send it? Check it out. Like, the whole family would be watching other people's wedding videos before they got it, because I just was not fully confident in what I was doing yet. And once I got done with school and I knew that I had that under my belt, like these days we just knock it out, send it. Like, we know it's what is expected, you know what I mean, or better. And I think that just comes with time and seasoning, you know what I mean? But in the beginning, yeah, it was the best thing that I could have done for myself.
Yeah, and I think the beautiful thing about this conversation with you is, a lot of athletes, current and former and future,
Right,
with aspirations, are concerned or becoming concerned potentially about their life post sport.
yeah.
You were, I think, very blessed to kind of, whether or not, nobody wants to admit that the writing's on the wall, no matter what space you're in, career you're in. But, I think you took a very admirable perspective into that. And I think it led you into a very beautiful place. Mm-hmm. To anybody that's listening, that no matter what stage of their athletic career that they're in, what's something that you can tell them about, you're in the grind. You don't want to even consider there needing to be a plan B.
Yeah.
What's something you can say to those people?
Well, from when I got drafted to today, I mean, it's a completely different landscape when it comes to athletes and their brands. So when I got drafted, there was Twitter. So if you were an entrepreneurial athlete, you had a Twitter. That was it.
You are verified.
Not anymore.
Well, before
Elon blew that up, but
yeah.
I had a check mark before. So that was the only real avenue where people were like, oh wow, they do other things than baseball. They have Twitter. Now, man, it's essential in building your brand to have social medias that are, curating content, to be stepping into the business world. You just see way more athletes pursuing that. When I had a YouTube channel for being a professional athlete, I was one of very few people. There was one other guy that played with the San Francisco Giants minor leagues I can remember that had YouTube channel when they were playing. So we've come a long way. Most guys got YouTube channels. They're on podcasts. They're doing a lot more stuff. So that's changed a lot over the years, and that's what I would say to any young athlete. And with the NIL now, man, this isn't even advice. I need to be talking to them.
Right.
They get it. These young cats, when you're coming up as a top prospect in high school or whatever, you just have eyes on you and you can monetize super quick. And I just look at where I was at. If we had this same culture, man, there's kids that are going to be millionaires before they step on the field from social media leveraging brands and NIL deals and all that stuff. And it's a quite different ball game. So I really don't have no advice for them. They need to tell me how to get that money.
Yeah, I think it would have been a very different landscape. Something that I wrote down while we were talking earlier that I think is important is you mentioned that you felt lonely during that transition. Mm-hmm. I think that stands true to a lot of people because, you're in the grind, and then if you realize, maybe this ain't it, you immediately, I think, block the world out and go inside to say, is it me? Did I do something? What could I have done differently? How do you not be lonely or force yourself maybe a little bit more external in those moments?
Yeah, so I can only speak for myself, but I would imagine this resonates with a lot of athletes. When you get to a certain level where so much is riding on your success, and it doesn't even have to do with you, your city, your family, your friends. For me, I was Justin Jackson, the baseball player. Everyone in my life knew me as, this is that guy he's got the dream and he's going all the way. So when years of that, you have people that want to hang out and be your friend and all that going on, and then you start to struggle and less of those people are around, or, you feel embarrassed to go out in public because someone's going to ask you how your season went and it went shit and you don't want to talk about it. You start to kind of keep yourself in a bubble. And I think that's what started to happen for me. I was in a small city where I go to the mall, I'm seeing 10 people I know, my mom's friends, I'm seeing aunties, uncles, people from high school, my rival high school. You just see people and you're I don't even want to talk about this shit because that's all people want to talk about with me. How's baseball? Because that's my identity. And until I was able to say, and I had a very great conversation. We had a sports psychologist named Ray Koreski, and I asked him, he asked me, who is Justin Jackson? And I was like baseball player, like said all these things. He was like, all right, if baseball died, if you woke up tomorrow and there was no baseball ever again, who's Justin Jackson? In that moment, this was before filmmaking, but I answered him and I was like, well, I'm creative. I feel like I can kind of do anything that I put my mind to, and I can make a way. And he was like, that's Justin Jackson, not the baseball player. That's something you do. That's not who you are. And that changed my life. That comment changed my life because I had put so much stock into the baseball player, and that really like made shit hard for me, you know? And not too long after that, I didn't really touch on, but I transitioned into being a pitcher, and things got a lot more like relaxing for me. It was new and exciting again. I was just like having fun, like Little League again, which was a great thing. But the pressure that I had put on myself, first of all, being a first round pick, being a guy that came from a city where everyone knew you and, you know, they all hoped for me to do well. Some people may not have, whatever, but like whether people were or not, my perception was that there was this pressure on my shoulders. My father was a former major league player. Like, I have to succeed. And that was a hard place to be and really made it hard to play day in and day out. And that was something that I dealt with most of my career. And then I got over that hurdle after that conversation with Ray and had really good 2 or 3 years as a pitcher because I had a better mindset, you know, and it changed everything for me. And filmmaking ultimately brought me out of my internal, you know, everything being internalized and going through that mental health kind of struggles I was going through. Filmmaking made me be myself again, which was the guy from, you know, in middle school, high school that loved art and was in class talking too much and just having a good time, brought that back out. And I'm just forever grateful.
I love that. The last 2 things I have for you are very quick questions, and I think it's a beautiful way to bring in the culmination of Justin Jackson, the professional baseball player and the professional filmmaker. So tell me, what is one moment in baseball history that you would have loved to have either, whether it's been at the stadium for or been a fly on the wall for?
Yeah, I think it's... So I'm going to just take it back to Derek Jeter, man. Any of those big-time plays, the one that I stood out to me so much was the play when they were playing Oakland and he was like the third cutoff man and picked the ball and did the backhand flip and they tagged out Giambi at home. Because at that time, like he immediately became the most cerebral shortstop in the game, and everybody talked about how crazy that play was and wow, he's just thinking above and beyond. And then he came out and said, no, we practice this in spring training all the time. This is routine. I was where I was supposed to be based on the play. And for me, that just was a very important thing. We talked about preparation before, and it was just a moment for me that made so much sense. And it was like, in my head, I was like, wow, that was way up here. But the level of excellence that the Yankees had at that time, that's just where their baseline was way up here, you know, and it was really kind of cool and just a moment that stuck out for me in baseball history. And yeah, it was dope. A defensive play, be the thing that I'd love to see.
Yeah, not what you would imagine. And lastly, what is one movie you would have wanted to be on set for production?
Yeah, so my favorite movie of all time is Saving Private Ryan.
It is incredible.
The opening D-Day beach scene would have been, I mean, I would have, this day, if I could go back there, I would literally be in tears watching it for a multitude of reasons. That would be the absolute coolest thing that I could ever, if I could go back in time and see. And this is just another side note. When I was 12 years old, there was a World War II History Channel summer going on, and every day I watched, when I would wake up, World War II documentaries and bios and stories. And at that time, around that time, Saving Private Ryan came out. My dad took me to the theater to watch it, me and my cousin, and it just changed my life. That was the movie that I left most impacted on of all time. I could watch it at any point in my life. Like if it comes on, I'm sitting down, I'm just like, dang. this is crazy. And it just really like, I think what really gets me is I put myself in those soldiers' perspective, and I can't imagine what it would be like to put everything down at that time of your life, which for me was, I was a pro athlete, traveling the world, enjoying my life. I'd be putting that down to go fight a war. And I mean, those are real heroes, man. And that movie just changed it all for me.
Yeah, and that movie historically is argued as one of the most historically accurate movies. I watch a lot of, I think Vogue does it, Insider does it, a bunch of other companies do it, Vanity Fair. You know, people that are experts in the field will watch movies and talk about, you know, the biggest gripe that everybody has is, I forget the exact name of it, but the pieces of the big like triangular like structures, they say the only thing is that those should be flipped 180. Other than that, people say that is nailed on for historical significance.
Yeah, there's a lot of different scenes. There's one little one. There's a scene once they got to the beachhead and the American soldiers basically had two prisoners and they had their hands up and they were speaking and it sounded like you don't know what they're saying, but they're speaking and then they shot them, right? And then they go, "Look, I watched for supper." They were like making fun of them. Well, they actually had the language they were speaking was from, I can't remember the country, but it was essentially a country that the Nazis had stolen young boys and placed them on the front line, and they weren't German soldiers. So they were speaking basically, and what they were saying was like, "Please don't shoot me, I'm not a Nazi." That's what they were saying, and they shot him. And they were just saying how historically accurate that was, because a lot of the initial soldiers were literally pulled from their hometowns and were not really wanting to fight, and were placed on that on that Atlantic seawall all up and down all of the the coast right there. And there's just like little nuanced things like that are just super deep in that movie that I don't think a lot of movies really did. Even nowadays, they're trying to push them out so fast. Like, movies the GOAT.
I love it. Well, Justin, it is an honor to work with you every day. It's a pleasure to have somebody with such a rich backstory on our team, and just, you should be proud of the journey you've taken, and thank you for being a part of the business, the podcast, all of this stuff. I think a lot of people are going to take value from this today.
Thanks, Diz, man. I wake up every day and I just love working with you, man, and I just really appreciate everything you do, and that you push me to do the best that I can. And even with this podcast, man, this is just like a lot of fun, very exciting, and I'm just really fortunate that we're doing this.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the viewer watching or listening. Ironically, we'd love to hear which of the two, because Justin and I both have very different podcast consumption habits. But either way, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast, this story, and we look forward to being part of a bunch of more stories and podcasts with you in the future.